We just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video is an interview video with a gentleman named Simon Strange. Some of you may know him. He is a game developer who worked on numerous Godzilla games that many of you enjoy. So the video was filmed yesterday, Saturday night, and I've actually been working really hard trying to improve the quality of the video, but unfortunately it just didn't work out that way. We were unable to do it on Google+, so we had to do it on Skype, and it was kind of a quick thing that I downloaded this third-party program that did manage to record the interview, but the sound quality is, you can hear it, but there's some moments where it spikes a little bit, so you might want to just keep your hand near the volume. And also the quality of the videos, it kind of goes in and out. Sometimes it looks fine, sometimes it doesn't. But nonetheless, you can still make him out very well, and he provides some great information on a game that he is working on with his team, including artist Matt Frank, which many of you know. And Matt was actually supposed to join us on Saturday, but he's still on his honeymoon. But nonetheless, here's the interview. I was going to break this down into 3 parts, but YouTube has that nice watch later feature, so you guys can just stop it when you don't want to watch anymore and then come back and watch it later. So without any further ado, oh, and one last thing I want to mention. At some point in the video, I mentioned I was going to do a Let's Play about this on a Sunday night. But the game is controller only, it's not keyboard, and I used to use my console controllers on my computer, and I used to be able to use my PS3 controller, but I haven't used it in a long time, and I think my Windows 8.1 update kind of messed with that. So I'm going to be purchasing a controller in the next day or two, and then we'll do a video on the channel with the game. But nonetheless, here's the interview. I hope you guys enjoy it. Simon Strange from Sunstone Games talking about his game Colossal Kaiju Combat. Hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob, and this video we have a very special treat. With me today is Simon Strange. Some of you may know this gentleman very, very well if you've played a lot of Godzilla Kaiju games. Some of you may not, but either way, it doesn't matter because this gentleman is a big Kaiju fan, and he definitely knows what the fans like. He himself is a fan, and I want to welcome him onto the channel. Simon, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm very good. Glad to be here with you.
All right, so right off the bat, the first thing I definitely would like you to familiarize some of our fans with some of your prior work, and then we'll definitely get into Colossal Kaiju Combat. So if you could just tell us some of your prior work before this game.
Sure. So I've been making video games since 1998. I started out on the PlayStation 1 with an awesome platformer that very few people played called Monkey Magic. And then I went to Dark Horse Comics, where I made a Hellboy game with them. And then I moved back to my hometown of Eugene to work with a little startup called Pipeworks Software that a friend of mine had helped to found. And they were working on a game that became Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. So I was a designer on that project, and I was primarily responsible for all the combat and the controls and the monster animations and how all that stuff plays together. Then I remained with Pipeworks for several years, and we did a lot of other games, including Godzilla Save the Earth, Godzilla Unleashed, Rampage Total Destruction, a couple of Prince of Persia games, and so forth. Then Pipeworks was done with Godzilla games, and so I moved on to another studio, and actually a couple of other studios. It got really complicated after that, but worked on Tony Hawk and Tomb Raider and Army of Two, and then I started my own company back a few years ago called Sunstone Games, and and so that's primarily what I'm working on now, but we'll get to that in the future.
All right, awesome. So now this project you're working on, Colossal Kaiju Combat. Now,
yes,
obviously we all know, and Godzilla's been a big staple on my channel, but Kaiju fans in general. Now, we know that this game, as far as I read, I mean, we know that there's a Godzilla in the future perhaps, and a Gamera, and even a Cthulhu I read. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Cthulhu's public domain. That's easy.
That's incredible. But tell us about what you have now, and maybe give the fans a little bit of information on this game.
Sure. So we're recording this. It's August 9th, so for context. So we have right now the first game in the franchise. So Colossal Kaiju Combat is a franchise, right? There's no video game called Colossal Kaiju Combat. That's the name of the group of games. Okay. The first game in that release is called Kaiju Land Battles, and that has 4 characters and 1 environment, maybe 2, and you just run around and beat each other's heads in with your monsters. Right now, we have all 4 of those characters playable. We have the environment, we have the game. It's totally playable. That's going to be coming out in early access on Steam, hopefully 2 days from now, on August 11th. And so people will be able to just get in and grab it off Steam and get in there and play. It is completely playable, but the combat is not tuned in to where we want it to be. The weapons don't work very well. There are no grappling attacks. We don't have rage attacks. So we're going to be tuning that combat a lot with feedback from the players. But we're also simultaneously working on our big first release, which is called The Fall of Nemesis. That'll be coming out probably the beginning of 2015, honestly. I mean, it could vary a lot depending on how other factors come together. But the idea is that all of these games, all Colossal Kaiju Combat games, share the same code base. They share the same core. And so all the combat work that we work on for Kaiju Land battles, really tuning in the controls and really getting it really tight and exciting, fun to play, all of that translates directly into the work we're doing in Fall of Nemesis. So when Fall of Nemesis comes out, it's going to have super tight combat initially, along with an incredible story mode and 11 characters that we got from our fans. So.
All right. That sounds incredible. Now, we did speak a little bit before we started recording, and you did mention it. While it's a PC game, it's controller only. So I just want to make that very clear for the viewers that this is a PC game, but requires a controller. Right. So now, right away, Simon, I already know my viewers pretty well. They're going to ask right away, why no keyboard function? Sure. So if you could just maybe explain to them, like you did to me, as to why that's the case.
Well, so part of the genesis of this game. So we did Kickstarter back almost 2 years ago to fund this game. And the part of the idea with the Kickstarter, I mean, we're doing this for $100,000. That is a tiny budget. The original Godzilla game was about $2 million. Wow. Okay, and we're making a game that's in many ways much bigger and better than that first Godzilla game. We're doing for 5% of the budget. The reason we can do that is because I made a deal with Pipeworks to license their engine. So I have the engine that I worked for years at Pipeworks, helping to develop their engine and tuning it to make giant monster fighting games, right? We made 4 of them. And so starting with that engine, it gives me a huge leg up, right? And so also that engine, Pipeworks has continued to update it. So that engine already runs on Xbox 360 and PS3 and Xbox One, and I mean, Wii U, like it already does all that stuff. But the gameplay, I'm just taking the gameplay we used in Godzilla Save the Earth, and I'm just updating it, right? I'm bringing in new characters and putting it on the PC. But I'm not spending a lot of money re-engineering stuff from the ground up, right? Because I want to take something that works and add new content to it and put it out there. Adding a really good keyboard and mouse control, something that would be actually fun to play with, would probably cost $25,000, $50,000 and take months, right? I mean, that's not very much, right? I mean, normally on a game, $2 million, $4 million budget, $50,000 is a drop in the bucket. But we're doing this really, really tight and lean. So once we put the game out there, we start making money. We do everything with the fans' input, and so we can say, all right, hey, we've just made $200,000 off this first game. What do you want to spend the money on, right? So a new character is about $10,000 each, maybe $12,000. Okay, so like, oh, we made $200,000. We could add 14 new characters and put out a new game with 14 new characters, or we could add mouse and keyboard controller support for the existing game. Which would you rather have?
Exactly. Absolutely.
And I'm going to tell you, if we want to put the game out on Xbox 360, we could totally do that. That would be about $200,000. Right, even though it already runs, right? There's no porting cost. It already runs on the 360, but that's just what it costs to publish it on the 360, because you have to go through physical media and printing and shipping and distribution and so forth. Probably we'd have to partner with a publisher who would take most of the profits on it, but they would pay some of those costs up front. It's all very complicated. There's a lot of money involved. We're trying to be transparent about money, but people usually don't want to hear about the money because it's sort of unpleasant and confusing. Right? People just want to say, just add this feature, and we're like, sure.
Well, I mean, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, that's people are going to want content over a keyboard and a mouse. I agree with that. So, and let's face it. I mean, it's not hard to go out and get a controller. The USB controllers are so inexpensive.
No, so you can buy a brand new one off Amazon for $14.
Exactly.
In fact, I showed you this before, but here on my desk here, I've got a 360 controller and a PS3 controller. They're just plugged into my PC. That's what I developed the game with. Those two.
Right, and like I said, I know my guys enough to know that was going to be a question, so I wanted to make sure that they understood why.
Sure.
So, all right. So now
one other point. We have 4-player local play. I'm going to tell you, even if you have keyboard and mouse, that's how you're going to play with 4 people with a keyboard and mouse on your machine. But if you bought a bunch of controllers, you can totally do that. And we also have online play, right? You can have 2 people here and 2 people remotely playing. You can have 4 people in different locations playing. But I'll tell you, playing these games with other people is a lot more fun when you're physically in the same space.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. I agree. Everybody likes to smack talk in person, right?
Yeah,
so
it's a lot better.
So now let's talk about your team. Yes. You're working with Matt Frank.
That's true.
Okay.
Yes.
And for a lot of you viewers know who Matt Frank is. He's a big kaiju fan as well.
Yes, he is.
He's done a lot of artwork and comic books, Transformers, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, as well, of course, of Godzilla.
Yep.
So,
Rulers of Earth out
so
on the shelves now.
how's it been working with Matt? And have you worked with him before? I'm just curious.
No, in fact, I had never met him before this project. We were introduced sort of at the beginning of this project. That was sort of the genesis. Was I'm going to run a Kickstarter and license the engine, and I was like, oh, but I'm going to need an art director. And Matt Frank was sort of a natural choice to come on board for that. So I had never met Matt in person. Now I've met him in person several times. We got together and did panels at G-Fest the last couple of years. And I'm sorry that he couldn't be here, but he just got married. So real life on his, keeps getting in the way of work. I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah, marriage, like really? What are you doing?
Yeah, really? So, yeah, but so that's been really great. He's done a lot of great concept work, and I'm really proud when you Google Kaiju Combat, even just Kaiju on an image search, like half of the stuff you're going to get is going to be the artwork we've been producing for this game.
Actually,
people are sharing it all over the place.
You guys show up in tags too on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
When we tried to do the whole Google Plus thing earlier,
right?
I went and typed in the title, so that way when I send it to you, you would see, okay, this is him because it's in the title, and boom, it came up right in the tags, which I thought was kind of funny. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. It came up on the tags.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
It's definitely, the word is definitely out there.
It's a thing. Yeah.
So now, how long has it taken from the time you? Well, just tell me from the beginning, from the time it started to now. I mean, just what kind of process has it been? Because I've never developed the game, but I did graduate with a degree in gaming, and I know to some degree that this process, even for a large team, is no easy task, let alone a handful of people.
Right.
So if you could just kind of elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, so I'm gonna use a few big words perhaps here because I like to be as correct as I can be. So. I think this is a big advantage. There are a lot of other Kickstarters. There's been fear about Kickstarters here and there, but it's like, oh, do these people actually know what it takes to develop a game? Exploding Rabbit, which made the amazing Super Mario crossover. This guy made the game by himself, completely self-taught. And then he wanted a budget to make a second game, and it just fell apart because even though he was incredibly talented and had great ideas, like managing a bunch of people and getting things done on time and handling the money and like dealing with all the problems that invariably happen, like that is really complicated. Like you need a lot of sort of like life experience. And I think that is something we have handled really well, although it is a little difficult for our fans to understand. So we don't have an office, right? I'm working at Pipeworks again now. I'm in the Pipeworks offices most days. And then we have different people in different places, and some people have worked for periods of time and then kind of off, and like audio kind of comes on and then goes off for again, and animation sort of comes in, there's a big push and then goes off, and then engineering, we have like 6 months of engineering last summer, and then engineering stopped until about, May of this year, engineering came back on. I mean, there's a lot of sort of stutter, stop, and start. But that's actually a huge strength of ours because we only pay people when they're actually doing work.
Right.
In a company where you've got 20 people, they're showing up every day, you have to keep all 20 people busy every day, right? And that is hard, right? And so some percentage of those, 3 or 4 of those people is probably going to be full-time managers making sure the other people have full-time work. Because we are working on a shoestring budget, we're bringing people on and off, and we're only paying them on the days that they do work. And then sometimes we start running low on money and we just stop work. And then we can just, we don't lose anything when we stop work. With a big company, if you delay a game by months, that's hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars that you're blowing, right? Because you can't stop paying the people, but we can. So, I mean, this is part of being small, lean, indie sort of thing. It also means that sometimes we build our coffers back up. Sometimes we're depleting our coffers. So in the commercial world, games are generally not announced until 3 months before they come out, right? And when the games are announced, they're usually done, all right, or essentially done. And they're just working on some screenshots and videos, and they kind of have this whole media push, and it gets exciting, and then the game comes out, and everyone's like, hooray! And of course, we can't follow that track. Like, we announced the game, put out some early animations, talked about it, and then like nothing happened for like 6 months. And people are like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden we show up with a playable game, and we go to E3, and we're showing off the playable game, and people are like, this is amazing, yay, there's a playable game. It's like, and then like everything stops again for about 4 months, and people get really upset, and they're like, what's going on? What's happening? I try to explain, but people's desire for drama is it's a powerful motivation.
Gamers especially.
Yes.
Gamers especially.
But we're coming out in 2 days, like I said, and so everyone's gonna be able to play the game. And it's interesting. So we've had a small group of people, about 30 people, playing the game for about a month now. And I was expecting most of them to be like, what is this? This is not finished. This is not fun yet. Because I was going to say, look, it's not finished. It's not very fun yet. Actually, the responses have been great. People have been saying it's already a lot of fun. And that's awesome. If people think it's fun now, it's going to get so much better.
Well, I saw the website. I don't mean to cut you off, but I saw the website. I read everything, and I like the way you guys have this planned out.
Yep.
Because it's almost like well, not almost. It seems like you're just rewarding people for, contributing towards the Kickstarter by having all these little perks. And I was wondering if you can get into that a little bit when you're done with what you were saying before.
So actually, there's a lot of the Kickstarter perks. We're continuing to provide those and offer those, and in fact, a lot of that stuff has become free because. Yeah. So let's say the big thing on the Kickstarter, the big thing that we had 50 of was we called them progenitor, a progenitor slot. Okay. And if you were a progenitor, you gave $500 to the Kickstarter. Not only did that mean you got copies of games and so forth, but you got to do 4 hours of conversation with myself and Matt Frank on Skype, where we would talk and design a monster with you. And we'd make official artwork, and we'd come up with names and attacks and like a whole history, and like and then we'd put it up on the wiki and let everyone see it and announce it, and then other people start to incorporate it into fan fiction. We have an official comic book now that's using these monsters. Like, these official monsters are a big deal. And initially, we did these official monsters with these 50 people who had each paid $500 during the Kickstarter. But then we found there were a lot of other people who really wanted those monsters as well. But of course, people said, I can't afford $500. And frankly, just because you can afford $500 doesn't mean you have a very good idea. So we've actually, over the last 2 years, we've developed this long and hopefully not too complicated process that is actually happening right now. Is that twice a year we hold sponsorships. Okay, so people are submitting monster ideas all the time. We have a place on our forums where you can talk about your monster and make an official thread about your monster and so forth. And then twice a year we have sponsorships. Sponsorships are when everybody's on the forums, everybody, just any anonymous person can come in and say, I like this one and this one and this one and this one is this one. And then we just get everybody's likes. You buy these little tickets for the monsters that you like, and we throw them all in a hat, and we draw about 50. And all those monsters that we draw their tickets for, those become part of the CKC universe. Right, and we get artwork done for them, and we do a little write-up, and we make a set of trading cards of those monsters, and you can play them in this little card game that we've developed.
Right.
And then the best of those cards become progenitors that can become part of a future video game franchise.
That's awesome.
So we're rolling in about 15 to 20 a year of new monsters that are just coming from the fans, and so I hope that when this goes out on Steam and just off into the future, people will see this game and be like, how do I get my monster in the game? And we've got that path laid out.
I think that'll take off, especially, the Kaiju fan base is so passionate, and even on the Facebook page, the channel has a Facebook page.
It does.
A lot of the members on that page they always sharing their drawings, their ideas for monsters.
Yep.
So for those of you guys in the nation who don't know about this game, this is your opportunity to really get involved and have a chance to actually bring your monster to life. Checking out this game.
Yeah.
So I think that's great that you guys are getting people involved, not only enjoying the game itself, but having an opportunity to be a part of the game. And I think that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Now in terms of this Nemesis now, so tell me a little bit about this monster, because I saw the picture of it. I thought it looked fantastic.
Yes.
So how did Nemesis come to be?
Okay, so Nemesis, the character, is from a book by Jeremy Robinson, best-selling author and writing a series of kaiju novels now. He's written a lot of books, though. He's a good guy. But he worked with Matt Frank on the character designs for Nemesis, who was the big monster at the end of one of his books called Project Nemesis. And when we were getting ready for the first Kickstarter, Matt talked with me and said, I think we should get this guy involved because he could help draw attention to the Kickstarter. And so we talked with him and we sort of made a deal to use Nemesis as the boss of the first big game, which is Fall of Nemesis. So you're going to defeat Nemesis. No spoilers. No, this is a huge spoiler. You're going to play through the final game. You're going to beat the boss at the end, and that's Nemesis. And so that became the boss we had for the first game, which was actually really important because we didn't know what the monsters were going to be for the first game because we knew we were going to take these monster ideas from the community, right? But so it's hard to get started on a game when you don't know anything about it, right? So we sort of had a construct for the game. We knew that Nemesis was going to be the boss. We kind of came up with a story. We came up with a Kaiju Jin, which I'm not sure if you've read about that, but that's an exciting thing. And they fit together.
I read the article a couple of times now, but definitely if you want to get to that for the viewers afterwards, that'd be great.
Anyway, so Nemesis has been a big part of our Kaiju Combat universe. And she's really going to be driving the story for the first game. And I think the story for the first game, it's really pretty awesome and epic. I'm really excited about that. Jeremy Robinson has gone on to write 2 more novels in that series, and there's another one on the way. He continues to use Matt Frank for that development. And in fact, I said that we had 50 progenitors from the original Kickstarter. Number 50 was Jeremy Robinson actually bought another $500 slot to make another monster with us, and that became Nemesis Prime, which, if you read about it, it's the monster that Nemesis came from, and that will be possibly featured in a future book. I have no idea. Maybe.
So there's a real deep world behind all these monsters. Not only, especially Nemesis obviously has. So it'll be interesting. Now, I know this is going to be another question of yours. Are going to ask, Godzilla, is that a legitimate possibility? Is that something that's a guarantee, or is that when? Because they're going to ask. I know my viewers.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
So when are we going to see Godzilla? When are we going to see Godzilla?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this two ways. One, I'm going to start about story fiction, and then I'm going to talk about legal and financial concerns. So number one, as I mentioned, we have these things. We have this idea of the Kaiju Jin, right, which are these 4 elemental forces of Kaiju in our game. Okay, so for example, why should it be that all the monsters are equally balanced against each other? Right? This is because of the Kaiju Jin. That's not the way they made it, right? They're like sort of like Greek gods, like they like to see the monsters fight, right? And they represent these different aspects of the monsters, and they're the ones who spawn the power-ups into the world, like we had in the Godzilla fighting games that I made with Pipeworks and Atari. And so they're the kind of the reasons, like, oh, how come these chemicals didn't kill it but turn into a monster? Oh, the Kaiju Jin interceded and created another monster. Like they're these kind of like elemental forces that make monsters and make monsters fight. Okay. So they exist sort of everywhere. So we've got our main Colossal Kaiju Combat universe, but the Kaiju Jin kind of like exist other places. So they can jump into the universe where Godzilla exists, right? And they can jump into the universe where Gamera exists. And they could like make cross-dimensional portals that would like pull those monsters into other places, right? And so they are kind of they're our unifying element, right? Now an important part of that is that the Kaiju Jin don't exist. They are not physical. They're not like something you can see or touch. Like they're completely ephemeral. Only monsters are aware of them, right? And so if we do a Godzilla game in the future, we'll still have power-ups, right? And the power-ups will still be the result of the Kaiju Jin's manipulation, but there won't be any direct story elements tying Godzilla to Nemesis, for example. Because when we were licensing Godzilla, Toho would not allow us to just throw our other monsters in and say, oh, and this is part of the same Toho universe. They wouldn't allow it. So this story structure allows us to keep things like the Toho universe completely separate, and still kind of like sprinkling a little sort of fiction to say like, oh, there's kind of a reason where you could imagine that it's all, it's like on the other side of that wall, you can't see it, but that's where Nemesis and all the Kaiju Combat monsters are. So there's that. So we're definitely prepared for that. But is it realistic? Will we get a Godzilla release for Kaiju Combat? I think we will. That has always been sort of the plan. In fact, originally, instead of doing original monsters, we were just going to go for the Godzilla license. We asked for a lot more money, but we didn't get enough. So Pipeworks made the tie-in game for the 2014 Legendary film. Okay, and so Pipeworks has continued to have good relationships with Toho. And as I said, I am still working for Pipeworks in a sort of a different capacity now. And so that relationship is all right there, sort of for the taking. Toho, it's really interesting. International or intellectual property laws are very different in Japan than they are in America. In America, we have a very business sort of ethic. Is that if I make a Snow White, for example, right? I'm Disney and I made Snow White. I can license the character to you, okay? And then we spell out in contract exactly how and where you're allowed to use the character, and then you are allowed to do that, right? And presumably you paid me, or we have some arrangement, okay? Okay. That's not how it works in Japan. In Japan, if I own something, you can't have it. Like, you can go ahead and use it, but I can always object. We can write a contract and I can give you permission. That doesn't mean anything. It's always mine. I can always take that power away. So this is actually why most Godzilla games historically are not very good, because American companies, publishers, game developers can't pay for Godzilla and get the rights. They can pay and maybe they'll get the rights, right? Toho at any moment could just pull it away from them, right? And so companies are generally not willing to put millions, tens of millions of dollars into really working on this game because Toho can always pull the plug, right? And in fact, Toho then has like all this control all the time. If you ever do anything that they object to that's not what they want, they can pull that away from you, and you aren't allowed to release the game. So it's a very interesting relationship. So it's really important when dealing with Japanese licensors to have a really good working relationship, right? And a lot of that is based on just time. And so Matt, Frank, and I both have years, a decade of history working with Toho. I think Toho trusts us and knows that we are respectful of their characters. And if they know that, and if they think the project is going to be successful and a plus for their brand, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to get it.
All right. Well, that's wow. That's some good information right there. I'm sure there's a lot of viewers that don't know about how difficult. And let me ask you: when a Toho works with a company and they don't like something and they pull out, does that company get the money back?
Absolutely not.
Oh wow, that's rough.
It is a
gamble. It is a gamble then.
Absolutely.
When you work with them.
Yes.
So you kind of need to walk on eggshells and really, really follow.
Well, and I mean, you've heard about. I mean, I grew up in the '80s, and there's all this like, Japanese business, American business, like it's very different. And like this is an example of how it's different. Like in Japan, they say, oh, we've given you the rights, we expect you to be really, really respectful all the way. And in America, like, you know, we work on the contract. Once the contract is signed, you know,
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
The contract is signed. There's no more
changing
relationship.
anything.
That's just a contract. But in Japan, like, that relationship is still the primary. Like, the contract's nothing. It's the relationship.
Yeah, it's the business relationship. Yeah,
Yep.
so well, that's amazing. But still, I mean, even still, the fact that historically you have, like you said, the relationship, and then Matt Frank, and and of course, everyone. If you're a Godzilla or a Kaiju fan, either or both, then you know, and you really appreciate it, then you have that respect for the genre and the character already.
Yep.
And then on top of that, you guys have the relationship. So that's definitely a big plus, I think, for fans
Yep.
going forward. But either way, aside from that, I mean, what you guys have right now, I think, is incredible. I mean, I saw some of these screenshots. I can't wait to play the game. And for those of you viewers, Simon has been very generous enough to allow me to play the games 2 days early. So I will.
Woo! 2 days early.
Yay! Well, considering that this was kind of a last minute thing, I mean, that's, you know, we kind of just spontaneously did this today because you had time, and thankfully, and we worked it out. But so I will put up a Let's Play video on that probably sometime tomorrow, Sunday, so you guys can check it out. And then I know you guys have Steam, so you know, once the 11th hits, definitely get that game.
Yep.
So I mean, yeah, but like I said, the monsters are great. I like the concept that you're discussing and the involvement of the fans. I really think, and then of course with your experience on Godzilla games in the past, plus you have Matt Frank, and then I'm sure the rest of your team is very talented. If you want to talk about some of your team members,
Sure.
by all means. If you,
I mean, they're not names people recognize, but the important thing is that most of the people on the team, most of the people working on the engineering and the art side, are Pipeworks people or ex-Pipeworks people. So people that I've worked with on the past Godzilla games. So usually I'm tapping people to be like, hey, remember, you know, this thing that we did that worked so well? I'd like you to do some more of that for me. And so it's great. And like this is how, you know, I'm able to get things done cheaply, is that I'm asking people to do things that they already know how to do really well, and I'm asking them to do the things that they like, right?
Right.
And so I know, like, part of the original idea with Colossal Kaiju Combat is that I wanted a game that wouldn't need a lot of engineering support. To make a fighting game, you need a lot of animation and character work, and then you need a lot of sort of like design work and hooking up and scripting everything together. And so that was going to be, I had an animator in mind, and he and I, we were like, we could make this game 80% just the two of us, right? I mean, working all the time is like, that'd be really great. And he was excited for it. I'm like, yes, this is, you know, the idea. And then, you know, audio, I was working with my audio guy some today, Mike Jones. He's in some of our videos. He's great. But, you know, he has to do a lot of audio for games. And a lot of times that's footsteps, that's people clapping, that's kind of like background noise. Like, a lot of audio that makes a game kind of come to life is sort of boring. And it's like giant monster roars and, like, you know, battle sounds. That's super exciting. So I get a good rate from him because this work is the kind of work that he wants to be doing. And, you know, this is the sort of game that has the potential to be a really big game that people know about, right? And you say, like, hey, I worked on the background sounds on this Office product that some people use. Like, you know, that's not exciting. It's not sexy. Like, oh, I did the audio design for Colossal Kaiju Combat. Like, that's something people can go out and play, and they're like, oh, that's awesome. I really like that. So
that's good.
That's a big motivator.
That's definitely a big thing. And, you know, it's perfect, too, because, you know, it seems now that the kaiju genre has made a very strong comeback. I mean, with all, you know, the Pacific Rim's coming back with a second movie.
When we started planning this, we knew that Pacific Rim was coming out. We knew that the 2014 Godzilla was coming out. We knew that in Pacific Rim they were going to call the monsters kaiju. Like, when we were talking about what's the name for the game, and we had this Kaiju Combat, and we thought that was strong. People were like, do people know the word kaiju? And I was like, well, you know, that word is going to be more in the lingo because they're going to say kaiju in Pacific Rim. I mean, you know, these are not just happy accidents. Like, we were looking forward at those things 2 years ago.
That's awesome, and it's fun because one of the things that I always hear viewers talk about or other fans prior to your game and now this other game coming out later this year.
Oh, the
was
PS3
no
game?
Godzilla games.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Oh, the PS3 Godzilla game.
Yeah, which I think is only coming. I mean, I think that's only coming out in Japan. Some people will import it, but prior to the announcement of that game, and then of course your game, that's the one thing people want is a kaiju game or a Godzilla game or something. You know, that we have not gotten that short of Monster Hunter, you know, like for the for the Wii and the 3DS.
I played those games.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun, but still, it doesn't have quite that kaiju feel. You know,
I agree.
Big monsters, smashing buildings, and all that kind of stuff. And to know that you guys are working on this game and that it's got a great potential and a great future, I think a lot of fans are going to like this and get very excited about this. And
I
you guys
certainly hope so.
Yeah, and the best thing is the game can just keep going and going based on people's ideas and the amount of work you guys put on. And I'm looking forward to playing it. I can't wait to download it. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
It's pretty small. It should only take 5 minutes to download once I set you up with it. So.
Oh, that's awesome. So, so listen, if there's anything else you want to tell the viewers, by all means, I'm definitely going to put a link to the website in the description, so these guys can go and check it out in more detail. I would love to have you guys come back for if you're, when you have time, you and Matt.
Yeah, I mean,
to come back for like a live stream or something. Maybe I know the fans would love to ask you guys some questions.
Sure.
And,
well, here's something else I should say about the game, because another big feature, and this comes directly from all the fan feedback we've been getting, over the development process. We've made the game, because it's a PC game especially, we've made it very, very mod friendly, right? So like we've already got custom loading screens, custom character skins, custom music. You can do custom battle supports where you can change like the health and the energy regen of the characters and so forth. That's all in there. You can define your own custom story mode. So Kaiju Land battles, there's no story mode. You just fight, right? There's nothing to it. It's very light. But you can build a story mode, which is actually the tool that I'm using for building the story mode for Fall of Nemesis, right? And so you can define player 1 picks a monster, and you're going to fight against monster A, who's got double health, and you're going to fight in this environment with only this kind of power-ups. And then you're going to watch this video, and then you're going to fight this monster in this environment, and you can create that whole sequence of events. You can play videos in between. You could recreate Godzilla versus Gigan, right? Wow. You could take clips from the movie and define those as videos and make new skins for the characters so they look like this, and recreate the battles and set up. I mean, those are it. We also have director mode in the game. You can, if you want to do screen caps and stuff, you can. If you have a controller you're not using, so 2 people playing a 3rd controller or a 4th or whatever, you can pause time. You can turn off the HUD elements. You can fly around and get different shots. It's all set up for recording videos of machinima and that sort of thing.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes. So these are all these features that are already in. All those things are in day one, because we knew that people wanted this. Yeah.
I like the sound of that. I love mods.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I love PC games. It's just the modding, and it's great. That's another great addition that you guys are putting in. You're really going to win a lot of people over with that.
I hope so.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So, well, look, Simon, I know you're a busy man. I don't want to keep you. But again, I would love for you and Matt to come back to the channel.
Yep.
Definitely, I know the viewers would love that, and I want to thank you for taking the time out to discuss your game.
Sure.
Guys, follow the link in the description if you want to know more about Colossal Kaiju Combat, which is releasing in 2 days officially, right?
Yes. It's going to be out or in early access, so it's not done, but you can start playing it in 2 days and help us tune the combat.
All right, guys. So you hear it. If you want to get your insight to this team that's doing a wonderful job building this game, August 11th on Steam on your PC, make sure you have a controller.
Yes.
Very important.
Very
not
important.
work with a keyboard and mouse. Simon, thank you very much, buddy, for being on the channel. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, guys. This is Rob signing off for ETN, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. And I'll see you on that Let's Play video. Take it easy, guys.
You're watching ETN, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video is an interview video with a gentleman named Simon Strange. Some of you may know him. He is a game developer who worked on numerous Godzilla games that many of you enjoy. So the video was filmed yesterday, Saturday night, and I've actually been working really hard trying to improve the quality of the video, but unfortunately it just didn't work out that way. We were unable to do it on Google+, so we had to do it on Skype, and it was kind of a quick thing that I downloaded this third-party program that did manage to record the interview, but the sound quality is, you can hear it, but there's some moments where it spikes a little bit, so you might want to just keep your hand near the volume. And also the quality of the videos, it kind of goes in and out. Sometimes it looks fine, sometimes it doesn't. But nonetheless, you can still make him out very well, and he provides some great information on a game that he is working on with his team, including artist Matt Frank, which many of you know. And Matt was actually supposed to join us on Saturday, but he's still on his honeymoon. But nonetheless, here's the interview. I was going to break this down into 3 parts, but YouTube has that nice watch later feature, so you guys can just stop it when you don't want to watch anymore and then come back and watch it later. So without any further ado, oh, and one last thing I want to mention. At some point in the video, I mentioned I was going to do a Let's Play about this on a Sunday night. But the game is controller only, it's not keyboard, and I used to use my console controllers on my computer, and I used to be able to use my PS3 controller, but I haven't used it in a long time, and I think my Windows 8.1 update kind of messed with that. So I'm going to be purchasing a controller in the next day or two, and then we'll do a video on the channel with the game. But nonetheless, here's the interview. I hope you guys enjoy it. Simon Strange from Sunstone Games talking about his game Colossal Kaiju Combat. Hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob, and this video we have a very special treat. With me today is Simon Strange. Some of you may know this gentleman very, very well if you've played a lot of Godzilla Kaiju games. Some of you may not, but either way, it doesn't matter because this gentleman is a big Kaiju fan, and he definitely knows what the fans like. He himself is a fan, and I want to welcome him onto the channel. Simon, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm very good. Glad to be here with you.
All right, so right off the bat, the first thing I definitely would like you to familiarize some of our fans with some of your prior work, and then we'll definitely get into Colossal Kaiju Combat. So if you could just tell us some of your prior work before this game.
Sure. So I've been making video games since 1998. I started out on the PlayStation 1 with an awesome platformer that very few people played called Monkey Magic. And then I went to Dark Horse Comics, where I made a Hellboy game with them. And then I moved back to my hometown of Eugene to work with a little startup called Pipeworks Software that a friend of mine had helped to found. And they were working on a game that became Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. So I was a designer on that project, and I was primarily responsible for all the combat and the controls and the monster animations and how all that stuff plays together. Then I remained with Pipeworks for several years, and we did a lot of other games, including Godzilla Save the Earth, Godzilla Unleashed, Rampage Total Destruction, a couple of Prince of Persia games, and so forth. Then Pipeworks was done with Godzilla games, and so I moved on to another studio, and actually a couple of other studios. It got really complicated after that, but worked on Tony Hawk and Tomb Raider and Army of Two, and then I started my own company back a few years ago called Sunstone Games, and yeah, and so that's primarily what I'm working on now, but we'll get to that in the future.
All right, awesome. So now this project you're working on, Colossal Kaiju Combat. Now,
yes,
obviously we all know, and Godzilla's been a big staple on my channel, but Kaiju fans in general. Now, we know that this game, as far as I read, I mean, we know that there's a Godzilla in the future perhaps, and a Gamera, and even a Cthulhu I read. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Cthulhu is public domain. That's easy.
That's incredible. But tell us about what you have now, and maybe give the fans a little bit of information on this game.
Sure. So we're recording this. It's August 9th, so for context. So we have right now the first game in the franchise. So Colossal Kaiju Combat is a franchise, right? There's no video game called Colossal Kaiju Combat. That's the name of the group of games. Okay. The first game in that release is called Kaiju Land Battles, and that has 4 characters and 1 environment, maybe 2.